another rainy day. What are we gonna do about this weather, y'all? Some days we get it sunny, other days we get it all cloudy and gloomy like today. At least it's Wednesday. Am I right? Good thing it's Wednesday. Halfway through it, dealing with this nonsense. God, I love this freaking song. This theme song from the OG NES Batman. Such a great tune. As the train goes by. As you see the train chugging along. All right, let's get started. 9 past the hour, 10 a.m. here in beautiful New York City, 52 degrees outside. Coming to you live, Queens, New York in the house. What's up, y'all? Good morning! Good morning, y'all. What is going on, everybody? Renee here with another The Morning After stream podcast. I don't know what you want to call this. It's a show, I guess, but it's really just me hanging out, you know, drinking my morning beverage and catching up on some of the news and talking about shit. But I'm glad that you guys have tuned in and you guys continue to tune in. So I'm very, very happy about that. And I'm not late today. There you go. I'm basically on time. Basically. Thank you. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope you've had a wonderful week so far and hope your week is continuing to be good with your Wednesday today. So yeah, as you could tell on the thumbnail and by the title, I will be talking about Avatar, The Last Airbender, the latest Netflix live action adaptation. I will be talking about that, but I will be talking about it at the 11 o'clock hour. That will be at 11 o'clock. So if you are here wanting to hear my thoughts on Avatar, tune in around 11 o'clock. That's when I'll be talking about it. It's an interesting thing because I've never seen the original animated show. Watched it all the way through, I should say. I've seen 3 episodes of the first season. I'll dive more into that and why that is and why I never went back. While I talk about my thoughts and feelings of the live action show. So if you want to hear about all that, definitely tune in around the 11 o'clock hour because I will be talking about that. And as always, if you're here and you enjoy the company, like I enjoy the company, then all you got to do, show us a little bit of love, just a little bit. It's so easy. All you got to do, hit the like button. If you didn't like this, if you're like, what the fuck is this guy talking about? You know, you can hit the dislike button too. And if you want to stay up to date to everything we do here on the channel and just get notified whenever I go live, make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell because last announcement and all that house cleaning stuff out of the way, later today at, I'm going to say 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Eastern time, I will be going back live again later today because today is the day that Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered launches. I haven't played this game in a very long time. And when I was reminded that it was coming out, I was surprised and I forgot. I forgot this, this basically left my radar ever since I heard about it last year. So I will be playing it live. You get to see my reaction, hear some commentary, and we could just hang out and chat about whatever the case is. Anything you guys want to chat about, talk about. And you could just see me and see maybe how bad I am at it. So definitely tune in later today around 7 p.m. because I'm excited and I want to share that excitement with all of you. So I hope you will tune in for that. All right. So let's see. What can we talk about? Well, you know what? I need to catch up on some of the news. There's a lot of stuff that dropped in the last couple of days. So let's spend a little bit of the morning talking about headlines, shall we? Headlines in the East. This is the portion of the live stream where I talk about the latest and greatest in headline news, movies, pop culture, TV, all that good stuff. So I basically am just sitting here. I've bookmarked things as I've seen them come through, and I'm reading them for the first time and reacting to all of these bits of news. So some interesting stuff to talk about, I will tell you. And I just based on headlines alone, it's going to be a fun morning. So let's start off with Vanity Fair has just released some of the first images from that new Crow movie that's coming out this summer, starring who's this? Bill Skarsgård. Most people will know Bill Skarsgård mainly from It. He played Pennywise the clown, but he's shown up in a lot of other things. He tends to be a very freaky looking dude out of all the Skarsgårds. So he does tend to play those roles that are kind of weird and kind of off kilter. And looking at these photos, oh my goodness, I don't know what to think about it. But here we are. Here, I'll share my screen. Here we are. First look at the Crow. Now, for those of you who don't know, this version of the Crow is basically a retelling, a reboot, a remake of the original Crow that starred Brandon Lee, that came out back in the 90s. But from what I hear, this is supposedly following more of the storylines and more of the events that transpired in the original comic book. All right. The original movie with Brandon Lee borrowed a lot of things from the comic book and utilized that into the movie. From what I'm hearing, this is supposed to be doing more of what the book is about, more of like the intricate details. I don't know how true that is because obviously I haven't seen it yet. But I was always a huge fan of the original movie. It is still to this day, maybe top 5 movies ever. If you go to my Letterboxd account on letterboxd.com, it is my 4 favorites. It's listed there as my 4 favorites. I love this story because it's a very romantic story in a way where you have someone's love who gets violently taken away from you, and you yourself get killed in the process, and you spend most of your quote unquote afterlife revenging on the bad things that were done upon you and the love of your life, in hopes to eventually get reunited with your love in the afterlife, whether it's heaven or hell or whatever the case is. And the comic book itself was such a violent portrayal of this type of storyline. And the Brandon Lee version was just a really gothic, hardcore story, hardcore movie. Great soundtrack. I remember the perfect soundtrack for the 90s. I remember it was the soundtrack that first caught a lot of people's attention because you had a lot of well-known artists attached to it. I believe Stone Temple Pilots did something in there, 9 Inch Nails. It was just a perfect 90s type of combination when it comes with soundtrack and movie. So they've been trying to kind of recapture that essence, that moment, ever since the first movie came out. They did a very, very piss poor sequel afterwards. And then they've done 2 other movies. When I was reviewing this story, I believe it was last week, there are 2 other movies that I totally didn't even know that they'd done. These were more like direct-to-DVD movies. One of them stars Edward Furlong. I don't know. Something in me is tempted just to watch it because I'm sure it is a massive train wreck, both of them. I think Kirsten Dunst is in one of them too. So when I heard about this, I was of 2 minds because I do feel like the Crow storyline can benefit from a modern day retelling with special effects today, um, and just with the type of storytelling that we can accomplish in today's medium. Then they said Bill Skarsgård's been attached to it, and I'm like, okay, that I could, I could kind of see that. Then there's this other person, FKA Twigs, or whatever her stage name is. She's a singer. So, I mean, we have another situation where we have a pop star, a singer, who's trying to break it into acting. Or maybe not. Maybe she just decides to do this one thing and that's it. But this has been in like development hell for a long time. And I think from what I recall, this movie has been filmed and done for a while, and it's just been sitting on a shelf. And they finally decided that they're going to release it this summer, out of all times to release it. Lionsgate is behind it all. And now we are getting to see the first images of it. And just this image alone speaks to me like Jared Leto in Suicide Squad. It just looks really weird. But just wait. This is just a tip of the iceberg right now. So like I said, I'm on Vanity Fair right now. Bill Skarsgård is probably best known in the country as the guy beneath Pennywise's creepy clown grease paint in recent It chillers, but that will likely change when audiences get their first look at the Swedish actor and director Rupert Sanders' new big screen take on The Crow. Skarsgård steps into the role of goth rocker Eric Draven, who, along with his lover Shelley, FKA Twigs, is brutally murdered when the demons of Shelley's past, in the form of a deliciously insinuating Danny Houston, catch up with them. And then just goes on to talk more about the story. Sanders' previous credits include 2012 Snow White and the Huntsman and 2017's Ghost in the Shell. So if you are familiar with those two movies, then you this is what you're going to get yourself into. Excuse me. I'm getting all choked up about it. Realizing he's beginning to sound a little emo, the Brit laughs and adds, "Look, I grew up listening to Joy Division and The Cure, and this movie is a bit like a Cure song, The Beauty of Melancholy." And that is very true. James O'Barr, the guy who wrote and created The Crow, I believe he drew it too. He was a vet, and he took a lot of his, I guess, traumatic experiences from his time served and wrote out this whole story. And a lot of people have used the symbol of the crow, especially the Brandon Lee representation, as like a gothic symbol, right? Like I said, the movie was very gothic. It was, around a time when gothic was being re-explored and very prominent in pop culture. It was a perfect timing for me because I was in high school, kind of going in and out of that type of mindset because I was listening to metal, missing to the 90s grunge, getting into some of that stuff like The Cure, The Smiths, Morrissey. So it was like a perfect storm for me when this movie came out because it just really spoke to me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I loved it so much. So I can get where he's coming from. So I don't know, past credits aside, if he is the right person for this. And mind you, these are just images. And, we've seen images in the past where images were taken from movies and it looks silly. But sometimes when we watch the movie, it actually ends up becoming great. But vice versa as well. Images look fantastic. By the time you watch the movie, you're like, what the hell did I just watch? So take it all with a grain of salt. This is just a first reaction to a lot of these things. But I guess here is the couple, Eric Draven and Shelley, before the events happen, right? So this in itself looks interesting. I'm going to increase this so that everyone can see a little bit more clearly. By the way, I love that they're showing this little video here on the side. Vanity Fair does a lot of these videos on YouTube in their YouTube channel where they have actors talking to other actors, directors talking to other directors. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff like I am, make sure to check out their channel on YouTube. But yeah, you have that here. Article continues to say Sanders knows that as the Crow heads towards its June 7th release date, much of the pre-release chatter will focus on the 1994 version starring Brandon Lee. And how could it not? It was the onset of the film that the broodingly handsome 28-year-old son of late martial arts legend Bruce Lee was accidentally shot and killed in a firearm stunt gone wrong. Interesting that we had a movie like that where this unfortunate accident happened on set. We lost what some would have said could have been a prominent action star in Hollywood at the time. And now, all these years later, we're dealing with another unfortunate onset firearms accident with the whole Rust situation with Alec Baldwin. So it's I don't know what's going on there, but it is kind of interesting to see how, we're talking about a movie that came out in 94 where an unfortunate accident like that happened, and now we're dealing with something very similar all these years later. So it's just really weird and bizarre when you think about it. Let's see. 3 decades later, the original Crow still holds up as a stylish pre-Marvel Studios adaptation of a graphic novel, but there's also something decidedly mid-90s about it, which is true. I agree with all that stuff. All right. This goes on to talk like box office results. So it's just more history about The Crow in itself. Get ready for this, because this is the full image of Bill Skarsgård as Eric Draven the Crow. And there you have it. I don't know. I really don't know what I think about this. Like I said, it screams Jared Leto's performance of the Joker in Suicide Squad. It has kind of like that weird Robert De Niro, Cape Fear vibe going on. It's just, why do we have to have all the tattoos? That's just one of my things. Does tattoos have to automatically say punk, gothic, different, right? And then you could see he has tattoos on his face, and now he has the semi-chrome makeup, with the black makeup around the eyes and the little things around the mouth, because the idea of the Crow's face comes from the old theatrical presentations of like happy and sad, like those emotional kind of masks. That is kind of like the concept of where the Crow face comes from. Eric Draven in the comic books had very metal hair from like the 80s, right? So you had kind of like the Poison Motley Crue hair going on. And of course he wears all leather and all that good gothic punk metal kind of stuff. But here you have Skarsgård with his trench coat. I don't know what like I said, it's just an image. We shouldn't judge too much on this, but right now it just looks funky to me. Really, really funky. So let's see. Well, this is still talking about the 90s version of The Crow here. But then let's see. As for audience will buy into the romance, Sanders doesn't seem too worried. I never did any tests between Bill and Twigs. What? That doesn't sound good right there. I had them for dinner when they arrived on set in Prague, and I was a bit like a nervous parent, looking to see if there were any sparks, because you don't know. And they were great. They hung out and were straight into it. As for Skarsgård, chiseled and menacingly inked up dude with the dragon tattoo look in the second half of the film, see photo of him standing in front of the mirror. Sanders says that his inspiration was less cribbed from Obar's graphic novel or Lee's previous incarnation than from his own life. I think the beauty of Bill is that he has a disturbing beauty, and as he transforms through his loss, he becomes this thing that even he can't control. It's the famous line, whoever fights monsters must be careful that they don't become one. That look was me in the 90s when we were squat raving in London, mixing with some modern influences like Post Malone, and Lil Peep. I hope people who are 19 today look at him and go, that guy is us. That image captures the beginning of his transformation into the Crow. It's the moment realized bad things are coming. And that's basically all from this article. So I don't know. Look, I like some of the things he said, and I don't like some of the things he said. Will he be able to capture the essence of The Crow? Only we'll know once the movie comes out. I guess I have to kind of submit to the fact that this is going to be a Crow that's going to be made for the modern day in mind. Kids of today, like he just said, the kids who are 19, the kids who are in high school or about to graduate from high school, this needs to speak directly to that generation, which I'm okay with. I'm totally fine with that. That being said, there's something in me that always says, well, respect the source material. Will he? We'll see. As far as the look is concerned, maybe I'm just a little bit biased, but I like the original look. I think the original that look still works today. Great case in point, if you are a wrestling fan and you watch wrestling, or you're somewhat familiar with wrestling, there's a wrestler, Rhea Ripley. She is the female champion right now in WWE, and her look is very heavily inspired by the Crow. And she sticks to the more OG kind of Crow look. And to be very honest with you, it still fucking works. It still works today. It looks menacing, it looks theatrical, and it has a lot of character there behind it. If the person in the makeup can really portray that type of personality that the Crow possesses, because the way the Crow operates is that he gets reincarnated by the spirit, this Crow spirit, that brings him back to life in a kind of superhuman, supernatural kind of way. You can't really kill him. You could wear him down. And if he doesn't accomplish and stick to the plan, that he gets weak. But that being said, he has the abilities to do a lot more than a normal human can. But he is never truly the same person that he was in the previous life, in the real life. He is a little maniacal. He is a little bit far out there because his essence is not really there. So you have to be able to play crazy in a good way. And can Bill do that? I don't know. He can play crazy for sure. We've seen it with Pennywise. We've seen it with other things. He could play weird and unusual. But can he capture the essence that Eric Draven is from the comic books? I guess we'll find out. We'll find out. But those are the first images there, and I don't know. I'm very 50-50 on it. So I'm not like full on like, this looks fantastic, I can't wait. I'm just like, oh, I don't know. So I'm curious what all of you have to think about it, what your thoughts are when you see it yourself. So definitely let me know in the comments, either now as you're watching, or if you watch on the replay. All right, this next bit of news really fascinated me when I read it, because it is just so bizarre. And it's one of those things where I kind of say, or I say to myself, I'm surprised things like this don't really happen more often. Or maybe they do, we just don't hear about it. So I'm someone who has, in my own experience, went to a lot of these pop-up experiences, pop-up kind of promotions for movies, TV, all various pop culture events. Back in the day, usually it's a marketing gimmick. It still is. It's like a marketing gimmick to promote whatever project, whatever piece of media that the company is trying to promote, right? And in the past, we've seen some interesting things. Like, for example, I can recall back in the day, me and my friends, we attended an escape room that was themed around the video game Resident Evil. and it was very well done. You know, you had to solve puzzles just like in the game, and you had the threat of zombies outside of the house you were in, and it felt legit, and it was legit, and it was, you know, again, well produced, well put together, and you felt like you were part of that video game, which was very cool. I've also attended things like um, the Stranger Things experience, you know, when you are going through room to room as if you're part of the lab where these things are happening and you're trying to find your way out. That was sponsored by Netflix to promote season 4 of Stranger Things, I believe it was. And it was, you know, done by a group called Fever, who's done multiple events like this in the past. So hearing about events with movie tie-ins and all is not very unusual, right? Like that seems to be happening more and more today. Just recently, I know there was something for Barbie, you know, to celebrate the Barbie movie, where in LA, if you were there, they recreated the Barbie Malibu house, and you get to go and visit, you know, and maybe have some tea or whatever. So these things are still happening. However, what happens when it doesn't turn out the way people expect? You don't really hear a lot of that, but apparently something bad happened now. And when I saw the headline, PQ, what's up, man? By the way, didn't want to leave you hanging there. PQ in the house. PQ in the house. PQ in the house. PQ in the house.
Yeah! Yeah! Wow. 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 Wow.
PQ in the house. He will chime in when he feels like it. Then he'll just go off and do his own thing.
I'm gonna come.
What's going on, man? So yeah, so let's go on to this story. But before we do, PQ, still remember moving Jerry near the window when the so PQ was one of my friends who we experienced at Resident Evil Escape Room. And yeah, that was a funny moment where one of our friends, who's very kind of skittish in a way, very easy to like scare, we kind of joked with him, and very gullible too, I should say. We moved him closer to this window because PQ knew at one point they're going to do something with this window, and they did. Yeah, they started slamming on it and pretending zombies were trying to break in, and he freaked out. And I think that was one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But yeah, so let's talk about an experience gone awry. So I'm here on The Hollywood Reporter. Willy Wonka immersive event leaves kids in tears. It looks like a meth lab. What was billed as an immersive experience seemingly inspired by Willy Wonka movies turned into the Fire Fest of unofficial movie tie-ins. Going on to this article here. An immersive experience that promised to transport Willy Wonka fans into a magical realm has turned out to be such an epic letdown that customers called the police and compared the attraction to a meth lab. The UK event, so this was in the UK, so this is not even in the United States, was titled Willy's Chocolate Experience and charged customers $44 each. Keep that in mind, $44 each. The attraction was not affiliated with Warner Brothers movie Wonka, though the event's marketing came as close as possible to suggesting it was based on author Roald Dahl's creation. The ad copy invited fans to journey to a universe where confectionery dreams are brought to life. That included mind-expanding projections, optical marvels, and exhibits that transport you into the realm of creativity and wondrous creations and enchanting surprises at every turn. I don't know. You ask me. Sounds like a meth lab to me. Meth labs can accomplish the same exact thing. PQ chime in. Come with me makes... Oh, I have to do this right. Come with me, make some meth in a world of pure imagination chaos. Or should it be in pure cocaina chaos. That's how it works. Or meth. My God, it sounds like a nightmare. But yeah, you could accomplish the same thing in the meth lab. So, but let's continue here. The event organizers apparently used AI to generate promotional images that suggested a very high quality attraction, which looked just like the immersive and trippy Wonka-esque world that the ad copy promised. But the result was somewhat different, and ticket buyers needed pure imagination to think it looked anything like a fantastical chocolate factory. I think they should have gave the people meth. If you're going to pay $44, give them some meth so that as they walk inside, they can basically pretend like it is Wonka's factory. By the end of their walkthrough, I'm sure most of them are going to be dehydrated and hungry or whatever the case is. And you could just give them one Hershey's kiss and say, enjoy. You are done. You've experienced it all. And call it a day. And I'm referencing actually, if or just say like "good day, sir," as you throw a Hershey kiss at them. I'm referring to if you ever are in Pennsylvania and you go to Hershey Park. One of the big draws there is obviously you're taking a tour at the chocolate factory they have there. And I guess if anything, that is kind of the closest you'll ever get to like a Willy Wonka's chocolate factory here in the United States, because literally the minute you are within the vicinity of the park, you smell the chocolate in the air. You really do. And you go through this factory and it's a fun thing. But as you take their little ride, they have this really, kind of cheesy ride, with the behind the scenes of the factory. As you leave, they literally just give you a Hershey's kiss, and then that's it, and they call it a day. So they could have done the same thing here. As reported by The Guardian, customers showed up in Glasgow. Oh, that is already like a red flag there. Nothing good ever happens in Glasgow. To find a sparsely decorated warehouse with a scattering of plastic props, a small bouncy castle. Yes, they have a bouncy castle, y'all. And some backdrops pinned against the walls. Scotland police were even called to the scene. The event shut down, and parents said their children were in tears. All the event lacked was a man in top hat telling customers, "You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir."
You blew it!
Photos from the event went viral online, comparing what was promised to what was delivered. So here's this tweet. Apparently this was okay. Look at this. That looks like if me and my friends decided to, like, in our basement or in a garage, create kind of like a Wonka experience, and we charge kids like 5 cents. This is like something kids would do like in the 80s. Like when I was spending a summer in Staten Island, first of all, bad mistake, Staten Island, right? But I have cousins who live there. And for the summer, we kind of created a haunted house event at one of the guys' house on that block, in his garage leading into his basement. But we tried to make it as elaborate as possible. Mind you, this is also the 80s. So we charged kids like 50 cents, I think it was. And it was just a way for us to make money for the summer so that we could buy comic books whenever the Good Humor truck. Because in Staten Island, funny story, they don't have Mr. Softy. They have Good Humor. And the Good Humor truck would come around, and that would be my way of getting this nice orange can of Crush and those WWF popsicles, which I really loved. Or they were not popsicles. They were like ice cream sandwiches on a stick. So that's what I would do with the money that we earned from their haunted house. This looks like the modern day equivalent of that, but they were charging $44 fucking per person. And look at the image that they used to promote it. It does look like something that AI spat out. How did they get away with this in the first place? Oh my God. Here's another tweet or Twix. Oh no. What is going on here? You've got to be kidding me. I have to enlarge these pictures. Okay, first of all, look at this. This looks terrible. All right, that already in itself looks bad. What is this? What is this? Is that the photo op? Everybody take your picture. What kind of hot mess is this? Seriously? They thought this was a good idea? Oh, well, at least they got a chocolate bar in there. All right. You can kind of see like that chocolate bar over here. And then, look, they made a little bit of effort on this bridge. Look at this. They got kind of like the green moss covering the side here. They at least made like the railings look like candy canes. And what is this here? They decide to wrap up a giant jawbreaker and just put it there. Wow. And why is it foggy? Maybe they're piping in meth into the place so that people can get hallucinations. This is just, wow. Really? I'm shocked. I am really, really shocked. It looked like they went to like a party's time store or a Spirit Halloween, got some props, and they're just like, we can make a fortune with this. They got some of those backdrops back here. Oh, this is madness. This is madness. I can't believe this. PQ, I have some ideas for a new business. Fake experience escape rooms that all look like meth labs. There you go. You want to go to a meth lab without really going to a meth lab? Well, how about a Wonky-inspired meth lab? Jeez. I can't believe that. That is freaking nuts. Oh, no. Oh, no. No. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. What am I looking at? What is this? What is this? The Oompa Loompa from the knockoff Wonka Land. It looks like she's running a literal meth lab and is seriously questioning the life choices up until this point. If you scripted this, I could say it was too on the nose. What is happening here? She looks like a captive prisoner. And that does look like she's making meth. Whoa, what? What?
You blew it! Fuck off!
What is in this glass case? Holy shit. I am speechless. I'm literally speechless. I cannot believe this. This is just the most bizarre and saddest thing I've ever seen in my life. What? Oh. I just kind of want to leave this on screen for a bit. And I want people to kind of have this marinate in their minds. Look at these eyes. These eyes tell an amazing story right here. It won't even let me zoom in. But look at these eyes. These eyes, they're telling you things. They're telling you, they're calling for help. These eyes say, help me. I don't know why I'm here. I don't know where this is. I don't know who I am. This is just the most bizarre thing I have ever seen. Here. I'm gonna do something here. Here. Oh no, that's not what I wanted. Here. Look at this. I'm gonna zoom in. Look at these eyes. Just pay attention to these eyes. Help me. Help me. They're asking me to pretend I'm an Oompa Loompa. And I'm making chocolate. Do you want some chocolate? No? No chocolate for you? Please. Please. They feed me. They feed me each time you pretend I'm an Oompa Loompa. Can you please help me? Help me. I honestly, I can't believe it. I seriously cannot believe that this is a thing. Or this was a thing. It's unbelievable. It is truly, truly unbelievable. Oh, we have video, folks. Oh, it's not done yet. We have video. Police were called to an immersive event inspired by Willy Wonka in Glasgow after furious parents complained about the quality of the event. All right, we have video. Hold on. Here's a video walkthrough. Oh, no, there's the bouncy castle. At least they had a bouncy castle, everybody. That backdrop, that is the funniest shit. Oh my God. Wow. Wow. Wow, wow, wowie, wowie. Of course, one could argue that a Willy Wonka-inspired event that ended with angry parents and crying children is more authentic to Dahl's novel than any of the recent Wonka movies. The Guardian added that event organizers refunded tickets and apologized for the very stressful and frustrating day, telling customers, "Unfortunately, last minute, we were let down in many areas of our event and tried our best to continue on and push through, and now realize we probably should have canceled first thing this morning instead." I mean, come on. Come on. Really? What didn't go right? What were they banking on that didn't come into fruition? That's what I want to know. Because this is a whole lot of wrong. And if they were maybe banking on some vendor to come in and doll the place up more, were they going to do this all that morning or the night before? Or what's the story there? Were they going to have like more live actors? Is the lady that we see here that is in full distress, is this like the owner's daughter? And basically, he's like, look, the actors didn't come through. Throw this wig on and this outfit. We need an Oompa Loompa on set. Daddy, do it for your dad. What didn't go right? What were they missing out on? What happened? You know, what were the last minute cancellations? Come on. This is a hot mess of a garbage. They probably thought they can get away with this. I mean, they used AI art to promote this event, and they were hoping to fool kids. Literally, fool kids. Unbelievable. And like I said, nothing ever good happens in Glasgow. So that should have been the first red flag right there. All 'Cause Wow. Wow, wow, wow. All right, you could stop clapping. But yeah, this is probably the funniest and saddest thing I've heard in this year so far of our Lord 2024. And you just can't make this stuff up. You really can't. But it goes to show you that hustle's a hustle. People will do whatever they can to trick people and fool people. And it's not everybody. But if you ever hear or you see an event that looks interesting, look into it. And make sure that it's at least run by somewhat of a respectable partner or a respectable company, like Fever. Like I said, Fever events, they do a lot of these things, but they actually have partnerships with like Netflix and other movie studios and all that to do these type of events. So, by the way, you could check out the link in the description of this. There's a link to Fever to see what events are currently happening in a city where you're in or close to right now. I highly recommend their Candlelight Music concert series, where they take genre music and they perform it with a small little orchestra, all surrounded by candles. It's a beautiful experience. I highly recommend it. And it's nationwide, so it could be happening in a town near you. But yeah, this was just unbelievable. Unbelievable. So yeah, I'm curious. Let me know in the comments, whether you're live now or watching on a replay, if you've ever felt slighted or disappointed from any kind of live experience event. Let me know. I'm very curious if people have their own horror stories to share. I am lucky enough to say I have not experienced anything like that. But I feel bad for these people. I'm glad they got their money back, at least from what we're told. And I hope these guys get laughed at and shunned online for the rest of their lives, because they deserve it. Because this is just insanity. All right. Let me catch up on some of the chat here. AKB Mobile, huh? Yeah. If rewind a little bit, you could find out the whole thing. PQ, by the way, AKB Mobile in the hizzy, AKB in the house. PQ got one. You're gonna get one too. AKB in the house. AKB in the house. Who is he? Doesn't matter. AKB in the house. He likes to show up. He likes to tune in. He likes to chime in. And he's an awesome dude. AKB in the house. AKB in the house.
Wow. 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 I'm gonna come.
Good morning. Glad to see you're here. PQ, meth delivery was late. AKB Mobile, nah, that's what they planned from the start. Yep, I agree with you. PQ, the meth didn't make it. That is the only thing that could have fallen through. Yeah, it's like the meth didn't make it on time, so we just had to make our own. Sorry. And, we're making it in front of you. But at least you get to sample it as we're making it. Holy shit. That is just, wow. Wow. Okay, one last time. This poor woman. This poor woman is trying to be an Oompa Loompa, and she's standing there making meth. What's in the glass case? I don't know. Maybe they went to the liquor store and got a bottle of cognac. Oh, man. What a blazing hot mess. AKB, Jerry's Welcome to My Dream. Okay, so that's an inside joke. So for those of you those meaning those of you who are not PQ, AKB, and me. Um, we have a friend, Jerry. AKB just doxed him. Jerry, again, this is the same Jerry that we freaked out and scared for the Resident Evil escape room. So this was circa, I don't know anymore at this point, early 2000s, mid 2000s, early whatever. And we're at E3. That is the video game industry event that used to happen every year when it was in its prime still. And the big thing, and I may have mentioned this in a previous stream in the past, but the big thing, the big hot ticket was getting invited to the Sony party. Sony would always invite select people, or if you knew someone that worked with Sony or at Sony, you'll get invited to this big event. And it was a full-on event. It's not just a party that they have in the hall. It is usually at some warehouse location, stadium, whatever they have access to, and they create this big party atmosphere. This one year, it was kind of circus carnival themed, and they had people walking around in giant stilts, kind of welcoming guests, interacting with guests, and they were trying to be very mysterious and very supernatural. And one of them walked up to our friend Jerry, literally crotch in face, and said, "Welcome to my dream," because he was trying to be all mysterious and stuff. And that was like a running joke that we had along the night, that Jerry was just in a world of hurt that evening. He was going to be just experiencing the worst. And when he got a little drunk, he couldn't take it anymore, that he had to walk back to the car. Now, the parking lot to this spot was a trek and a half. So much so that they had, in the beginning of the event, they had buses or shuttles that would take us from the parking spot to this event. And we are in the hills of California, known for mountain lions and maybe bears. I don't know. I made it up. I said, Jerry's going to get raped by a bear on the way back to the car. Nice knowing you. So needless to say, there was just a lot of stuff that was happening that time there. All right. It's funny how we covered just 2 bits of news, but they were big ones. It's 11 o'clock, and as promised, this is a time where I'm going to be talking about my segment of the week called Binge of the Week. So this is the moment of the stream on Wednesdays where I talk about and I review a show on streaming that I binged in the past week. And of course, I couldn't help it because it's brand new and I knew everyone was going to talk about it. So I decided to watch Avatar: The Last Airbender on Netflix, live action adaptation. Netflix has had some hit or miss luck when it comes to adapting anything from animation into live action. Very mixed to poor reviews when they did their Cowboy Bebop adaptation. Very poor reviews when they did their Death Note movie with the great Willem Dafoe starring in it. Very positive reviews on One Piece, which I think pleased a lot of people. I have yet to see it, but that is a future binge that I'm going to be doing soon. So stay tuned if you want to hear my thoughts on that. Again, that is another series that I've never watched at all. I've watched maybe 4 episodes of One Piece, the anime, never read the manga. And Netflix is on a roll. I think decent responses to the Yu Yu Hakusho live action. Again, something I never watched. I haven't watched yet. But now Avatar: The Last Airbender, which is a very beloved animated series that was on Nickelodeon. So just some history here. The series on Nickelodeon had 3 seasons. I believe to many's surprise, it was ended kind of abruptly. I think people were hoping and expecting that there will be a fourth season, but it ended after three. It spun off another series called Korra into her own little series. I don't know off the top of my head how many seasons of Korra they made, but that explored more of the water bending side of things. Again, I'm just talking top level stuff here because I've never watched any of them. But during the time of these shows when they were first out, very well received, very well loved by not just younger generations but older generations too, who love good storylines, good animation. You know, kind of people who are like into anime. This really appealed to that audience. I had a lot of friends that loved it. A lot of friends were pushing me, "You got to watch this. You got to watch this." And like I said, I tried. I watched 3 episodes of season 1 of Avatar, and I liked it. However, I also felt it was kind of slow, and I kind of lost focus and attention, and I ended up kind of putting it on pause, watching other things. Then, as what always happens, life happens, and I never had a chance to go back to it. I've always had it in my queue. I've always wanted to go back and revisit it. Just never happened, right? So when the news came out that they were doing a live action version of it, I think, you know, for a while people were kind of wondering, well, how is this going to turn out? An attempt was already made in movie form thanks to M. Night Shyamalan back in, I want to say 2009. I might be wrong. I'm gonna look it up right now so I don't sound like an idiot. Holy shit, 2009, y'all. Movie trivia, baby. Oh no, that's a regular Avatar. Hold on. Hold on. I may have my avatars mixed up. So, movie 2010. All right. So I was a year off. I was a year off. My bad, y'all. I'm sorry. But M. Night Shyamalan decided to adapt it and make it a live action movie. Just based off of trailers, it looked interesting. But again, since I've never seen the original animated show, I wasn't going to watch it because I think I would have been lost. Or I just don't have those ties to the original to want to go and see something like this. It came out, and it was heavily panned left and right by fans, by critics, by anyone. And to this day, it's probably considered one of the worst movies ever made. Also, what is this? It kind of made M. Night Shyamalan's image and name put into a very bad light. And that's unfortunate because I think he's still a very good director. I think his shtick of, you know, twist endings and all that had a moment in time, but then later on, it was just, you know, it's kind of what you expect now when you watch any of his movies, which is kind of unfortunate because as you're watching his movies now, you're like, all right, where's the twist? When's the twist going to happen? So it's kind of unfortunate, you know. But yeah, for the longest time, it was only that live action movie that people have had. You know, as far as any additional versions of Avatar. And if I said 2009, did I say 2010? I hope I did. All right. So then Netflix decided, you know what, we're going to take a stab at this. They have the money, they have the budget, and they decided to work very closely with Nickelodeon and originally worked very closely with the original creators of the animated show. They eventually did bow out. I'll talk more about that later because there is a nice article kind of explains all of that stuff. AKB chiming in, you still got to watch Avatar the anime, dang it. I'll get to that. All right, so hold your horses. I will get to that. So there was a lot of anticipation for this live action show as it's about to come out. And, we got a lot of teases, photos, trailers looked promising, and people were really excited, me included, because from what I know from the animated show, I like the fact that they got young kids to really portray the characters of this series, of this show. One thing that was off-putting about the movie is that they looked like they were much older based on their counterparts from the original property, the original franchise, the source material, right? So I love that the fact that they got young kids. We got some big talents attached to this, like Daniel Day Kim, Ken Leung, Amber Midthunder, who I really loved in that movie Prey. If you haven't seen it, she is a great actress. Plus, it's not easy to do a movie in her native tongue, Comanche, which I thought was brilliant. You know, and like I said, it's promising because they had the original creators on board. So, with all that fanfare and anticipation aside, they finally released it last week. And they do what they usually do. They just dropped all the episodes there all together. It's 8 episodes for the first season. 8 or 7. I think it's 8. Let me see how many episodes of Avatar Netflix. 8, yes, 8 episodes. They were roughly around 45 minutes each, a hefty amount of time. And given that it's only 8 episodes, they had a lot to kind of squeeze in there because this was supposed to be like a season 1. Not sure where they're going to go with a season 2, but it looks like and sounds like that they already are on board for a season 2. So again, riding high on anticipation, and you know, people will hopefully be liking it, right? Now, I reacted to the trailer when it came out, and thank you to a lot of you out there who watched the trailer reaction I did. Positive feedback from that, and a lot of people were kind of giving me the recommendations because I made it known I'd never watched the anime all the way through or the animated show all the way through. Should I watch that first before going into this? And I got mixed comments, right? People said it'll be interesting if you go into this for the first time, seeing what you thought about it without any previous prejudices, right? That was like the more common feedback. Then you had the real fanboy feedback saying you got to watch the original because you're going to go into this not knowing anything. So you have to have some sort of tie to it, which I can kind of understand. But at the same time, a show like this should not be catered to the fan base 1000%. Yes, you should pay homages and respect the original source material, but at the end of the day, who are you really trying to attract? You're trying to attract a general audience. People who maybe never seen the original stuff, they see this, and now you're hoping this will please them enough that maybe they'll go back and watch the original animated show. And if not, at least they will want a season 2. That's just how you have to think about it. It's the same thing that I've been saying, that's why Marvel is suffering right now. Marvel is now expecting you to be in the inside knowledge of everything that's happening. You're supposed to be watching all the Disney Plus shows, watching all the movies. It's a little bit too inside baseball now at this point, that the general audience, who may be a casual viewer or watcher, is now completely lost. So, as at least from me and from a creative standpoint and from a business standpoint, if you're going to create a show like this, yes, pay proper respects and homage to original source material while still leaving it so that a general audience can still, enjoy it, understand it, be entertained, and want more of it, right? Especially if you're planning to do multiple seasons, create a franchise out of it. So I decided I'm not going to watch anything yet, and then I'm just going to go into it semi-blind, knowing just a little bit of what happened, because like I said, I watched 3 episodes, so I kind of remember some things. I obviously know how the characters look and a little bit of how they act, and go into it that way. I really liked it, guys. I really liked the show. I love, and I didn't think I was, because after the first 2 episodes, I was like, oh boy, I don't know how I feel about this. Because now they do what they usually do nowadays is they have different directors for every episode, but they had the same director for the first 2. I think they had a different director for the next one, same director for the next 2, and then same director for the following 2. Because what they did is that there were two episode arcs in this first season. And that happened in the latter half of the season. And I think that's like the best part of this season, in my opinion. But the first 2 felt a little too network television for me. And in this day and age of streaming, I don't want to feel like I'm watching an episode of a streaming show with potential commercial breaks coming. Because I felt like they kind of timed it and paced it, thinking that, okay, this is a great moment here to break. Or this is a moment that's supposed to spawn this type of reaction. It's a little bit too network TV formulated. And I was just like, there's a reason why I don't watch network TV anymore, because I hate that format. But that being said, after a while, it kind of slowly got away from that. And then the real story started kicking in, and I was in 1000%. So much so that the first night I started watching it, I was only planning on watching 3 episodes. I forced myself to watch the 4th because I really, really wanted to see more of it. Eventually, I had to stop because I had to go to bed. Then the next day, I couldn't wait until I picked things up back again. And no matter how late it was, I blew through the last 4 episodes. And because I just wanted to see where the story was going to go, because I found myself thoroughly entertained and enjoyed it. And there are many reasons why that is. However, I will do another criticism here too. And I don't fault this at the creators. I don't fault this at the writers. But it's also one of those shows that, if you are familiar again with the typical tropes of an animated show and an animated series, this is one of the biggest criticisms I have about The Bad Batch. This is also a lot of criticism I have of anime. Each episode is kind of like Adventure of the Week. Kind of like, okay, this episode is dedicated to progressing the story a little bit this way, but hey, guess what? There's a little side mission over here that everyone's going to go through, and they have to complete within the confines of this one episode so that we could move on to the next episode. However, that being said, whatever they go through, it teaches each of them a lesson, right? Aang had to do this because now it teaches him to look at this thing that way, right? Katara had to go through these moments in this episode so that she could learn to respect this and that. Sokka kind of had to do this and this to learn a little bit more about himself and what he's capable of. So every episode in a way was like episode of the week. What kind of silliness and adventures these guys are going on? And again, that is a product of network television. That's a product of that kind of medium. But it's also something that I feel is very overly played out. Because I'm now at that level where I expect everything to kind of be like an HBO show. Like a Max show. Right? Which they don't really do that type of formula anymore. But since the original source material is that, and that formula still works for a more generic audience, then I can understand why they would still maintain that. But the one thing I did appreciate is that, like I said, depending on what kind of adventure they went on in this particular episode, there is something to take away from it, and there is something to be learned that does carry on with them into future episodes, into the rest of the season. Now, as someone who's very brand new to the storylines here, the one thing that I will say that I loved, first of all, was the relationship and the friendship between the 3 main characters. Aang, Katara, and Sokka. My favorite out of the three was Sokka because he was like a spitting image of that kind of egotistical, I think I'm the hottest shit kind of guy you used to see in animated shows, really in live action form. If you were to grab the Sokka character from Avatar, the animated show, and really yank him out of there and put him into a live action environment, this guy, Ian Owsley, portrayed him to the T. And I was shocked because that type of character trope we've seen in other stuff before. Let's go back to the 80s with the original Dungeons and Dragons animated show. The Cavalier was kind of like that, oh, I think I'm cool and hot shit and Babu Beatty, right? Let's go to the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. On Fridays, they had the Zelda episode. Link was kind of like that. Well, excuse me, princess. Right? So we've had that type of character. And this guy, Ian, played Sokka to that T. But not as annoying. Because you still kind of rooted for him and you still kind of wanted to see more of him. Plus, from what I've read, they took out a lot of the sexism kind of things that he always used to throw at, Katara. How women shouldn't be doing this and doing that. But they did still explore that storyline with the Water Tribe in the North later on in the season. And again, by the way, if you've never seen Avatar, I'm going to be spoiling shit. And again, you should know me by now. When I talk about stuff, I talk freely about things. That's just how it goes. So if you haven't seen Avatar: The Last Airbender at all, my bad, but it is what it is. But if you already know, you know. So you know exactly what I'm talking about. But the relationship between the three are great, and I love their journey. And it's a journey that I think a lot of people can relate to, and we can compare it to a lot of things that we've seen. Katara's journey of, that trauma that she got, seeing her mom get killed. That fear she has in her. But yet there's so much expectation from her about what she's capable of doing, getting over that hump, right? Sokka, hearing his dad say that he's disappointed in him and how he's supposed to be this warrior, but he lacks a lot of that confidence, even though as a front, he shows that he has a lot of it, but in deep down inside, he doesn't. And he's learning to accept that he is good at what he does. And he is very capable, right? And then you have Aang, who is, was dealt a very bad deal. His entire tribe is gone, wakes up 100 years later, not knowing where his position in life is, except that he is the Avatar. And he doesn't want all that responsibility, right? So all three actors portray their characters, I think, flawlessly. Another favorite of mine is Zuko. I love that dynamic between him and Aang and how they are, in a way, very parallel to each other. Zuko being ousted from his homeland, as his father, put him to task. You're not allowed to come back until you can capture the Avatar, right? So he's always trying to get the father's approval. Another trope that we are very familiar with and we've seen before. But also still has that heart inside of him. He doesn't want to necessarily have to do the bad things, but, he feels like if he doesn't, he's never going to get back home. And then he's being guided by his uncle, Iroh, played by the great Paul Sun-Hyung Lee, who you should know him from the Mandalorian series and all. He's like that rebel pilot that shows up all the time. Great guy. And he is a very, very typical kind of Jiminy Cricket, voice of reason, guiding light kind of guy that you do see in a lot of these animated shows. And then I also love the dynamic Zuko has with his sister, Azula. and how it's the sister that really wants the dominance. She really wants to be the leader. She feels she's very capable, and kind of like the back and forth, the rivalry, sibling rivalry that they have. I love that. I think the standout out of all things outside of Ahsoka was Ken Leung's portrayal of Commander Zhao. Like, we've seen Ken Leung do so many different things. He's always kind of been like that questionable guy. When you see him pop up in a series or a show, you're like, uh-oh, is this guy going to be up to something? You never know. You could never tell what you're going to get with him. And lo and behold, he was very much the same type of person in this show as well. Yeah, and he was so good. I think he is a great actor. He's perfect for this role, and he was just he did a really good job, and his performance was outstanding. As for the story in itself, I mean, I always make fun that a lot of the anime, especially the really popular anime, borrow a lot of things from Journey into the West while still trying to do their own spin. You could easily say that about Dragon Ball. You could easily say that about Naruto. Yeah. This one, you could kind of see it, but they really, really did their own thing here. But Aang is your typical heavy weight on his shoulders, but very happy-go-lucky kind of guy. Always like, well, my master always said, blah, 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 this and that. So I guess that's what we do. Right? Very just like chippy, whatever. So if you're not used to that, or if that kind of stuff annoys you, then you'll probably get annoyed by this guy. But I think Gordon Cormier, who portrayed Aang, it was just really good. But yeah, I love the story. So the first season basically is a journey of the three to get their way to the north, the northern tribe, because first of all, Aang needs to learn how to bend other elements. Katara needs to learn more about bending. All she has is this scroll, and she's trying to self-teach herself. And, Sokka is just along for the ride, basically. While you have Zuko obviously trying to capture the Avatar so that he could just return home. And it's the adventures leading to that. While Aang is learning how to be an Avatar, right? And, the season ends with them in the north fighting off, the Fire Kingdom as they were trying to take over because they want to get the Avatar. And, you have Katara, who found her way. She is, she ends up becoming a great warrior, kinda, still learning. But now she's teaching some of the younger, they refer to her as master. She spoke up for the women of the tribe because they have this thing where women don't fight. Usually the women are only the healers. So she had one of this like rah-rah moments where she got every female from the village and like, all we want to do is our part to save our village. And they do their thing, right? Sokka's always falling in love with somebody. So I think that's really interesting that he fell in love with Amber Midthunder's Princess Yue. Who I guess it was great to see Amber in there because I just know her as an actress, and I think she's a great actress, and I think she really did a good job for what she was given here. But yeah, Aang goes into this weird. This is a moment where I could say, oh, this reminded me of Dragon Ball, because Aang gets into this thing where, they're dealing with the moon. They figured out that they could kill off the moon, and that will kill off the powers of the water tribe. And now with the lack of moon, everyone's suffering. So Aang decides that, well, you know what? I'm going to do my thing. And he transformed into this giant water spirit. But the whole, danger there is that he gets lost in it. So he is no longer Aang. He is now just the embodiment of this water spirit. Which kind of reminds me of Dragon Ball, like when Goku looks into the moon, he transforms into this giant ape. He's no longer Goku. He's now this giant ape. And no matter what you do, you can't snap him out of it until they figure out you could cut the tail and all that. Here, there's no tail, but he's this embodiment of the water spirit. He's getting rid of the fire tribe and doing his thing. And when it's all said and done, it's the plea from his friends. Aang, come back. And there's still a glimpse of Aang realizing that, I'm not really alone here. I have my friends now. This is my family. And that's what Katara says, like, you're our family, blah, 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 this and that. So he's able to kind of snap out of it. And now him and his new family of Katara and Sokka are still on their adventure because they still need to learn things. He needs to still learn how to airbend other elements because at the end of the season, he still didn't learn anything new at all. But you have Azula already on the warpath. The season ends with her taking over the Earth Bender place. I forgot the name of it. I'm really bad with names, guys, so I'm sorry if I'm lacking, but it's the same place where Aang met up with his friend who's now obviously over 100 years old. And they have this little back and forth battle as the friend is testing Aang. Which is really funny. That had a lot of Naruto vibes for me. And I thought it was just an interesting thing to see in live action. And I think they pulled it off really well. I think the visual effects are very nicely done for the most part. There were many moments where it felt too CG. Too much of whatever method they use, whether they use the same thing they use on the Mandalorian show, the view, the eye, the whatever, all the LCD screens. I don't know if they use that method, but there were many moments where it just felt like they were just walking around green screen, which, it is what it is, but it does take you out of it sometimes. I wish they used more practical stuff, but I get it. It's easy to do, saves time, and it's cost effective for the most part. But yeah, season ends. Azula's on the rampage. Zhao's out of the picture. Zuko is out there still trying to deal with what's right, what's wrong. Katara now has this new form of confidence. Sokka too. But Aang still needs to learn more bending techniques and so on and so forth, right? And then you have Ozai, who is overseeing things and still wanting to take over the realm or really control the realm. Boomy, that is the friend's name. And I thought the actor Utkarsh Ambudkar did a really great job playing Boomy. Very, very comical type of character. Very comical. But yeah, and I'm going to say this. I enjoyed this show so much that now I am going to set time aside for myself to finally sit down and watch the animated show. Because now that I got a taste, now I think I can easily just go into it and watch it. And I can do a comparison and see how it is. Because I enjoyed this show so much that I do want to see the next season when it comes out. I do want to see more of it. So, the whole thing I said before about you're creating a show like this to not only appease the fans, but also to entice a more generic audience to want to watch this more. And hopefully maybe go back and revisit the original series. So in that case, it worked perfectly for me. But I still have some questions. Some things that kind of stood out that I'm like, wait a minute, this kind of doesn't make sense. Like, for example, if the air tribe and the fire tribe are always against each other, in order for fire to work, you need oxygen. So why can't the airbending tribe suck out the oxygen from the fire tribe so that they can't utilize fire anymore? Am I thinking too scientifically about this? I don't know. That's just me. And then the whole Appa, the giant air buffalo, where does he go when he's not around? He's like Aang's Nimbus cloud. You know how like Goku has his Nimbus cloud that like when he's not using it, it's somewhere. And then when he needs it, he calls it and it just comes and shows up. That's Appa. I think that's how you pronounce it, right? It's like, where does Appa go? Like, you know, Appa will just be off screen for the longest time. And all of a sudden, we need to get out of here. Wee! Oh, Appa! Yay! You know, is Appa off grazing somewhere? You know, like that's one thing I just don't understand. It's like, where does this damn giant thing go? How can this thing hide, first of all? Yeah. So yeah, I just those are just some like little tidbit things that I just find a little annoying or just questionable. I'm just like, well, this doesn't kind of make sense. Why is this way? Why is this that way? You know. But yeah, I hear that there is mixed feelings about this show. I saw some initial headlines about reviews from critics saying that it didn't have the same emotional impact from the season, from the original show. And I think, I don't know, I think people who feel that way maybe just hold the show too close to their heart. That's why I think it's a good thing that I went into this kind of blind with no attachment whatsoever. It's like the same people who love books and then when they turn into movies, they feel like the movies don't do the books justice, which I'm sure for the most part is very true. But if you have that sort of attachment, such close attachment to a piece of property, the minute someone takes their stab at it and takes their own spin at it, then you can't help but be very critical about it, right? I get it. I totally understand. Look at me, what I just said about The Crow before. You know, I have my thoughts and feelings about that and how this new one looks like. I think it looks questionable, but that's because I hold the original at such a high level. I can't help but be critical about it, you know. But when I finally finished watching the series, or at least I should say the season, I did go back and I kind of looked at what's different from the show to what they did now. And from the consensus that I've seen is that they've combined a lot of the episodes into like the one episode. They took bits of season 2 and introduced it earlier here in season 1 just to help with the narrative. There are certain things that they included that they never showed. Like they didn't show what happened when the Fire Kingdom invaded the Air Kingdom. I think they referred to it or they referenced it, but the way this show here started was we got to see Aang hanging out with his people for a while. And then we got to see him being told that he's the Avatar. He needs some time to process it. So him and Appa go flying somewhere. And then the Fire King come in and invade. So we get to see a lot of that. And from what I heard, the original show doesn't do that. We got to see really how Zuko got that scar on his face and what led to his kind of ousting from the kingdom. They expanded a lot on that, which I think is well done because it makes you feel for Zuko. You know, I like it when stories challenge you as to, are you supposed to be hating on the bad person or can you kind of understand him a little bit? Right? And they did a very good job at doing that in this show. Yeah. And how it looks like, as of right now, it looks like his sister is the one to really be feared. Plus, they should. I think another difference is that it was season 2 where you saw the sister manipulating lightning, and we saw a glimpse of that here as she's trying to prove her worth to her dad. So I noticed that those are a lot of, not a lot, but those were like some of the key differences between the live action and the OG. I'm sure and there's a lot more that I'm not mentioning, but those are some of the things that stood out. AKB Air Tribe never saw it coming, and the 100-year comet supercharged the Fire Nation to hyper levels during their Air Nation genocide. And yes, Appa is grazing. Okay. Watch book 1 of the animated series, which takes you to the end of the Water Nation of the North. Glad the live action got you hyped for the animation. Yeah, Azula isn't introduced until season 2, so that's early for the live action. Yeah, I think it, again, to help with the narrative and knowing that you're only dealing with a set amount of episodes, I can understand why they have to make some of these changes. Because you got to leave the people wanting or kind of in anticipation of something for season 2. Right? That's just how it should work. The season, when it comes to like the Zuko storyline, okay, he already had his confrontation with Aang twice. He had a confrontation with Katara, and she was able to hold her own. But at the same time, we also got a sense from Zuko that he still has that heart, and he's conflicted now, in a way. He still wants to prove his worth to his dad because he still wants to get back home, but he's not sure about the mission anymore. Then he finds out that his sister has been against him this whole time, hence why she was working very closely with, who's this? Whatchamacallit? Zhao, Commander Zhao, sending him instruction and doing all these things, being like the puppet behind the scenes. And then we get to see that she took over the Earth Kingdom place. What's it called? Omiyashi or something like that? I could be wrong. Again, I'm very bad with names, so I apologize. So you have to leave the audience with, wow, she looks like she's going to be a major threat. So what lengths will she go? Gotta wait till season 2, right? So I understand all that stuff. And again, for me, as someone who's never watched it, it has me anticipating the future of this show. And now I think I'm ready to go back and watch the original animated. So yeah. So as I was reading up a lot of things, obviously, as we often get, we get some behind the scenes news of, some of the casting that was involved, stories that were left behind, the game plan, and really what happened to the original creators who were involved in this season and then eventually bowed out. So there's this article on The Hollywood Reporter here that I'm going to read. Avatar: The Last Airbender boss talks top secret casting process, stories left behind, and series game plan. Albert Kim also talks about the original series creators exiting the Netflix remake. It was a personal decision for them to leave, and why fan expectation is a consequence that goes both ways. And that's basically what I was trying to say before. Like, I understand the fever, and the passion that a lot of these fans have for the OG series, but you have to kind of allow things to be a little bit different to appease to another generation who's probably never watched the season or series at all. And you're dealing with live action, and a lot of animation cannot translate properly into live action. And how expectation can be a bad thing for the most part. AKB says, also agree with the writing of Zuko. Let the watcher decide, is he really the bad guy? Character villain gets better. Oh, you'll find out at what lengths Azula will go. Okay. Again, stuff that I'm very much looking forward to. That I'll finally get a chance to see. So the article says the live action series adaptation of the popular animated show Avatar Last Airbender has been a long time coming and, like any great saga, hasn't been without its share of challenges ahead of making it to the top of the mountain. Now the 8-episode series book 1 is available in its entirety on Netflix. Geared to longtime fans and newcomers alike, there are hopes that Avatar could become their next big fantasy event series. For showrunner Albert Kim, he's taking in the moment, hesitant to jeopardize the future with any talk of what's to come, but more than happy to discuss the passionate process that went into creating this initial season. So here, this is an interview here. So do you remember your first introduction to the animated series and your initial thoughts? My daughter grew up watching it, and it was her favorite show when she was a kid. I would come home and find her sitting on the couch by herself watching it. And so I sat down to watch it with her, and that's when I got totally sucked in. Pretty soon, I didn't need her there. I just watched it on my own. I loved it because, as every fan knows, it's just this epic storytelling and action and adventure and emotion and humanity. It was all those reasons. Plus, for me and my family, it existed in a world inspired by Asian folklore and legend, which was incredibly rare to see even now, and much less back then. So that was also an important component of the story. I will also praise this show because they got so many Asian actors and actresses, plus Native American, to represent the Water Tribe. Very well represented, very diverse. So I really, really appreciated a lot of that thought that they put into inclusion there. Question to when the original creators of Avatar Last Airbender, Michael Dante DiMartino and Brian Konietzko, left their position as showrunners on this series over creative differences, it created a lot of discussion among fans about the validity of the Netflix adaptation. I'm curious if you had spoken to them at all, or if their experience gave you any pause on coming on board this iteration. This is what Brian had to say. They were still involved when I first joined. They had been working on it for a while on their own, but then I came on board. So we overlapped for a little bit. I got the chance to talk to them a lot about the show. Everything from their vision and what I thought should be done to me geeking out about being able to talk to the original creators. So we worked together for a little while, and then they decided they needed to leave, and that was a personal decision on their part. It did bum me out because I enjoyed working with them, and I obviously would have loved to have kept on doing that. But they went through their own process, which started before I was part of the project, and it was a personal decision for them to leave. We just kept on going as best as we could without them. The next question is a little bit about the casting process. It was great to see this Asian and indigenous cast. I called them Native American before. It was a tall order to fill these roles. As you said, we were committed to authenticity, not just to the cultures that inspired the characters, but to the characters themselves. In addition to looking at Asian and indigenous communities, for these actors, we also wanted people who were close in age to the characters. This is kind of what I was alluding to before. I appreciate and love the fact that they look like kids. So that meant finding a 12-year-old or someone close to 12 to play a 12-year-old, which limits your options more. And the other challenge we had was the whole casting process was conducted in top secret. So they couldn't know it was Avatar. I had to write fake scenes for them to read and audition with. A lot of times they were reading off scenes about being in math class or playing basketball, stuff like that. I often joked with my producers that I wish we just compiled all of the fake scenes and we could create a whole new pilot by myself. A lot of times we weren't, or at least I wasn't even listening to the lines being spoken because they had nothing to do with Avatar. It was more about trying to envision these actors as the characters. And with every single one that we landed on, that's the case. So I think that's pretty awesome. You've mentioned Game of Thrones as an example of the expanded audience you're hoping for with Last Airbender. Funny that I mentioned that I'm expecting HBO quality type of show. I think part of that wide demographic in terms of Game of Thrones' popularity is the fact that the actors in that show were quickly made into bigger names. Thanks to movie opportunities, engagements, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure you know that despite some recent changes, there's still a struggle in Hollywood in terms of studios making good on potential star power and versatility of the Asian American and indigenous actors. I feel this show is really good opportunity to showcase that versatility even beyond Avatar. I'm wondering if that was something that was also on your mind when casting. Well, you can only hope that's what happens. I mean, giving these incredible, talented, and gifted performers a platform was great, and we were aware that we were doing that. So it's just like, I understand the question, but I want to stick to really the depths and behind the scenes of the show itself. In terms of coming up with the structure of the series, did you rewatch the first season of the animated series, look at the A and B plots, and decide from there what episodes you wanted to pull from and which you wanted to cut? So yes, this is kind of what I was looking for. The first thing I did was lay out all the episodes of the first season on a big whiteboard. We, the writers' room, wrote them all out and what each was about, and then took a look at them and sort of unraveled all of them. Then we looked at which of these threads go together, where we find some thematic parallels between characters and storylines and scenarios, and how we could weave them back together to create something that felt more serialized. Sometimes that involved taking a character like Jet, who is good at heart, but turns to an extreme place by the war, and then take a character like the mechanist, who you can say the same thing about, and connect their storylines, even though the two appear in completely different episodes in different locations in the animation. That was really intriguing to us, so that's the process we took in shaping up the structure and bringing characters together to create new turns in the story. So what he's referring to here is that the whole Jet storyline and the Mechanist storyline happened in one episode. Actually, this was one of the arcs. So this was like a 2-episode arc that happened in this season. And it all took place in the earth-bending kind of realm. That place, the really legendary place that the kids go visit. And for me, again, not having ties to the original show, I think it worked well and it played out well. And they were able to find a way to kind of tie the two, that you needed you couldn't have one without the other. So it was a very interesting dynamic they had going there. And for me, it worked out pretty well. You're probably still catching your breath from the first season, but while planning the structure of season 1, did you think about future seasons in terms of, if we use this storyline here, we can move this one to season 2? Nothing as directly as that. We pulled certain elements from season 2 into season 1. Like I said before, say like Azula and a couple of understory elements that fans will recognize. So we were borrowing a little bit there, and there's nothing to say that the process can't go both ways. There's nothing to say that we can't use things that we left out of season 1 in later seasons. But there was no deliberate plan to do that. There was no, we'll leave this story out of season 1 and use it in a later season. We left the door open for that possibility because we have the benefit of hindsight, where we know the overall game plan of Avatar, so we can use the elements as we see fit. I think one of the things that also worked well for me, that tend to work against me when I watch anime or anything animated, are filler episodes. You're always gonna come across episodes where there's filler. I think by doing a show like this and kind of, restricting it to X amount of episodes, combining episodes into one, or combining storylines into one or two, borrowing from a season 2, you avoid yourself running into an episode which doesn't feel like matters or makes sense. We saw some of that happening on the Bad Batch, which was annoying, and that's why I haven't gone back to that yet. We did see some of that happen on The Mandalorian in season 3. So it's that fine line you have to ride, and it's a hard thing that you have to go through in order to avoid moments like that. And I think what they did here is that they utilized their time and their episodes well enough that there was never a point, except with the exception of maybe a couple in the beginning and maybe one little bit when they were in the, what was that world in between worlds, the spirit world. The episode, they actually called it Spirited Away, which I thought was like a nice little nod to Miyazaki. but there were moments there that I felt dragged a little bit. And I remember as I was watching it in my mind, it flashed in there. I said, "Uh-oh, filler episode," because that's kind of what it felt like. But it didn't last that long, and then it picked up very quickly after that. So, when you think about the show as a whole, did you see it in terms of a 3-season arc that the anime show went with? Honestly, I didn't focus beyond season 1. It was enough without the additional hurdle and challenge to get season 1 to the finish line. That's been the focus. And again, having the benefit of hindsight, you can look back and see in the animated series, each of the seasons feels slightly different. I think fans will recognize that the later seasons of the animated series are a little bit more serialized than the first season. So the process might vary a little bit in that regard, but we really don't want to look ahead. I mean, nothing for nothing else is not to change its success. So that's why the focus has just been getting to the finish line. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I also heard that the later seasons get real serious and real mature, I guess, in a way. So I guess that is what he's referring to as far as it being a little bit more serialized, because I think it goes from the adventure of the episode or adventure of the week to more throughout storylines. So each episode's kind of depend on the previous to continue a storyline and all that. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's just what I heard. In terms of bringing animation to live action, what was the biggest challenge in your eyes? Well, there are certain things you can draw that when you're trying to translate in live action are incredibly complicated, both practically and financially. There are so many epic sequences in the original series that I wish we could have done, but it would have just broken the bank many times over. The Northern Air Temple episode of the first season is a finale in itself. And if we had tried to do what we would be, if we had tried to do that, we would be blowing all the resources right there. So we had to pick, and the toughest part of this process was deciding what to leave behind. And I'm sure there will be fans who are not happy that they didn't get their favorite episodes and their favorite characters. And all I can say is that it pains me too. Yeah, the last battle with the Northern Tribe in the Fire Kingdom was very epic. You know, when they reference Game of Thrones, there are very Game of Thrones-like moments in this season. The war room scene with who's that? Ozai, Lord Ozai. That whole room. This was more of like a flashback moment because whatchamacallit, we got to learn more about Zuko, and kind of this is where we get a glimpse of his heart, you know, how they're like developing this plan, and they're going to sacrifice this army to penetrate this one area, and because of that sacrifice, it's going to open up opportunities to kind of, you know, go in this and go in that. And Zuko was against the whole, like, you know, those are our men, you can't sacrifice them, those are lives, and blah blah this and that, and that created the riff and the tiff between Ozai and his son. But that was like a very Game of Thrones moment, and just seeing all those ships coming down to the north part, to that temple, was breathtaking, and it felt very Games of Thrones to me. So I love that they had moments like that there. Let's see. Lastly, taking on such a beloved property with such a passionate fandom can always be an interesting experience in terms of both fans coming in off the animated series and new fans who are going into this world for the first time. What do you hope that they come into the show, what they come into the show with, and what do you hope that they leave with? All right, this speaks to both me and the fans, so let's read about that. Fan expectation is a consequence that goes both ways. It is a burden at times because you know that there are so many people counting on you to deliver certain things, and at that same time, it's a bit of a privilege to have such a devoted and passionate fan base out there who were eagerly waiting to see what you do. I mean, I would rather have that than the opposite, and no one talks about it. So for fans, I just hope that when they come and see the show, they recognize that even though this isn't a note-for-note translation of the original, we stay true to the spirit of the original. This is basically what I've been alluding to. Like, as long as you like pay the proper respects to the original, that should be enough. Should be. Because just like them, we are fans first and foremost. And that's how I approach the whole show, as a fan first, and then I sort of put on my producer cap and went about making the show. I hope they realize that none of these decisions were made haphazardly, and they were all very carefully considered, and the ultimate test was whether or not it stayed true to what we felt was the spirit of Avatar. For new viewers, I'm hoping they get introduced to this incredible world that so many people have already fallen in love with, and they see why everyone has fallen in love with. And they can see a story filled with humor and heart and adventure and excitement and emotion. And I hope they just get it. I hope they get this is why Avatar: The Last Airbender has resonated with so many people over all these years. And that is the end of that article. And I will say, brilliantly done, because I get it now. I can honestly say, I get it. I understand why people love this series. I can see why it is appealing, what's attractive about it. And it's not just the story itself, it's the characters. And if you have a story that has these strong characters attached to it that you actually really care about, then that's what makes the show a show you have to watch. You know, a show that's worth watching to you, a show that's meaningful to you. Because if you don't care about the characters, then what's the point? Why bother continuing to watch it, right? And I feel like a lot of shows, they miss that step, And I think in order for people to love something, they have to make it to the point where you are in love with the characters, that you're so invested in them that you care about what happens with them later on. That's the only way you could ever capture someone's attention when it comes to any kind of story. You could have the most fantastic idea, dragons, or being able to bend elements, or a future war gone wrong, an event that took place that wiped out most of humanity. What can people do to survive? You can have interesting premises, but if you have main characters that you could give two shits about, who the fuck cares about what happens to the world? You know what I'm saying? And I hope people and creators and big companies, and I'm talking about like Marvel, DC, and other streamers who are trying to put new shows out there. I hope that they can understand that and put themselves to task. Because again, a lot of the Marvel shows that came out recently, I couldn't care less about most of the characters that we were introduced to. And when you have that going for yourself, that's a bad spot to be in. Because then you lose the confidence of your audience, and your audience will not come back, especially if it's repetitive. Here, I think they did something where I think people who watch it first time, or fans, will appreciate it, and first timers like myself will want to see more of it. And that's what I've said, and I can't wait. I can't wait to check out more of the animated show for the first time, and I can't wait to see where they're going to go and how they're going to tackle season 2, if there is a season 2 to come, but I'm pretty sure there is. So, AKB Mobile season 3 is more serialized, and you adventure each week, but there's an icon that's blocking your comment. So, you know what? Let me read it here. But there's a very serious through storyline of this season. Okay. So kind of what I was thinking, what I was expecting it to be. So, okay. So with all that said, I am curious to hear your thoughts on the live action adaptation, Netflix's Avatar: The Last Airbender. AKB, now that you've heard me talk about it, are you going to watch the live action show? PQ, if you're still around, let me know if you're interested in watching the live action show. But yeah, I'm curious to hear the thoughts of everyone who is either checking this out, thinking of checking it out, or planning to check it out. So with all that said, There were some other news items that I wanted to talk about, but you know what? We can save that for Friday because we are now at the 2 hour mark and it is already noon. So I'm going to call it for this morning. Thank you so much for everyone who has tuned in and joined in on this conversation. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I hope you enjoyed the company and the time. Again, 7 p.m. tonight, I'll be going back live because I am excited. We'll be celebrating the release of Star Wars Dark Forces Remastered, a PC classic from the MS-DOS days. I can't wait. Again, from what I've seen, it looks fantastic. So I'm really, really excited to check it out. So make sure to stay tuned and tune in if you're going to be around at that time. If not, I'll be back live again on Friday. It's Dune 2 week, y'all. So I'll be talking about my thoughts and give my review on Dune 2 because I'll be watching it tomorrow. I'm also going to be watching an early screening of Spaceman, the latest movie from Adam Sandler that's going to be debuting on Netflix, I think this weekend. I'm not exactly sure about that, so I will be talking about that movie as well. A little secret, I've seen it already. But I'll talk more about that on Friday. So again, thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoons. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesdays. If I don't see you at all for the rest of the week, have an amazing rest of the week leading into the weekend. But if I do see you on Friday, I can't wait to hang out with you all again. So all that being said, stay cool, stay classy, stay safe. You know the spiel. Also, don't forget, like, subscribe, do all the nice things to help support this channel, help this channel grow, spread the word, all that good stuff. I will catch you next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Peace out. See ya.